Welcome back once again. I hope you are well. I hope your day is good. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Those of you who have taken your time to listen to our President, General Abdourahmane Tiani video, thank you for doing that. A lot is in that interview. So thank you for doing that. This is continuation of the almost 6 hours interview that our president has given. We are at the point of history, historical date, many things that has happened in Africa, Niger as a whole. How the table has turned that now Africa that used to feed Europe now is called poor. And why Nigerians should unite. The history that is between them. They are one people. They need to unite. A lot is in this 1 hour or more interview. Families, please listen to the President of Niger, General Abdourahmane Tiani, in his own words, narrating the history, the economic situation, the security once again in the region. Families, I'll be back. Thank you for your time.
Mr. President, the dissolution of the unions in the sector hinted at imminent reforms that would quickly change things. Then, on December 12, 2025, during the judicial reopening, you delivered a strong message regarding your vision for justice and held all stakeholders accountable, especially the magistrates. Where do we stand today, and what are the prospects in this important sector of our lives?
The true justice cannot simply be sick or unwell. Justice is physical. Justice?
No.
Is it material?
No.
It is not material. So how can it be sick? Is it human?
Not that either.
It is the people responsible for the administering of justice who are actually sick. It is not justice itself. We have laws. As I have mentioned before, these things have been revised several times and thoroughly cleaned up, but no, even if it is just the very surface layer that is removed, as long as the underlying mindset doesn't change, and as long as there are still sick people remaining in this world, within the complex framework of our modern legal and judicial system, we will undoubtedly continue to observe various forms of deviant and unconventional behaviors as society evolves over time. But the most important thing is not those behaviors. It's us, our reaction to those behaviors. And that is the responsibility of all Nigerians. We have moved past the era of cheating, corruption, clanism, and partisanship. No, we have moved on. If you hold a position, you must deliver justice to the people of Niger. If you are unwell, if you are unable to deliver justice to the people of Niger, you will be replaced, especially since making the right choice shouldn't be so difficult. How many magistrates do we have? But maybe that's also part of it. That's the real tragedy. When you have the possibility to choose, do you remember those classes in middle school where we used colored balls? So probability, that's it. So, when the inherent ability to explore a wide and diverse range of potential probabilities is significantly reduced or constrained, we unfortunately find ourselves in a situation where we just keep recycling the same group of people over and over again. But we recycle as best we can. So, I won't go into the details. Justice is not sick. It's the actors within the justice system who are sick. I'm saying this because I know it, and I know it because I had to take action against certain individuals. So, as long as we continue to keep turning a blind eye to these issues, and as long as the Nigerian people truly believe that magistrates are somehow positioned above the law, or that those working within the justice system are completely untouchable, if government members or other powerful individuals are considered to be above the law, then we simply won't get anywhere as a society. The fundamental problem isn't actually our written laws. Rather, it is the specific people who are responsible for enforcing them every day. I encourage you to go and look closely at the various nicknames that have been given to certain magistrates by the public. You'll understand the scale of the problem.
Today, here, we're at 5%.
No, it is the names they have been given. Don't even need to say it. So the names they've been given, because they stood out particularly for their excesses and tendencies. That's what we all need to fight against together. We've had some incidents, you remember. A magistrate who, I went out with a competitor to a girlfriend's place. And what did he say? What did he say? You are in Niger? You were in Niger, right?
Insulting
Magistrates.
the case that happened recently in Bifas, not.
As a matter of fact, there was one that just happened recently in the year 2024.
But first,
It was already happening. It's behaviors like these that we've chosen to eradicate. A magistrate, just because he shares a girlfriend with a fellow countryman, thinks he can take his car and run him over.
this specific one right here,
It's not just some random incident that happened here. For how long has this been going on? So it's this kind of behavior that is corrupting the justice system, and it's this kind of behavior that we need to confront. Not just the decision makers, but all Nigerians must reject them. Otherwise, we will never be able to contain or eradicate it. It is essential for people to fully understand that those old days are now completely over. You see, there is actually no such thing as a charge for contempt of magistrates when you are standing outside the courthouse walls. There is no contempt of magistrates, it's just about a girlfriend. That's over now. If it used to happen, it must not happen anymore. There is no more taking. We are pragmatic. We are dealing with reality. Justice must be pragmatic and grounded in reality. We understand that difficulties affect every sector, but the stakeholders must also understand that difficulties affect every sector. Everyone tightens their belt without breaking their waist, but they do tighten their belt. Everyone needs to tighten their belt.
your tour has rekindled patriotic feelings and strengthened national unity. That's indisputable. What message do you have for those who are trying to undermine our way of living together, and also for all Nigerians?
To all the citizens of Niger, what I truly want to convey to them is that we are all united as one single people. Niger is one people. As for the others, we have no time for them. The nation of Niger, or more specifically, the territory defined by the recent borders established back in 1960 or 1958, which was the pivotal year when it was officially declared an autonomous republic within the French community before gaining full independence, does not reflect what it truly is. Niger does not reflect who the Nigerians are. All the way back, since the ancient Paleolithic era, between 2,600,000 and 3,300,000 years ago, the vast Sahara region of Niger was once inhabited by ancient peoples. There are archaeological traces left behind. These are the ancient remains of early humans, providing clear traces of prehistoric life dating back to the lower Paleolithic era. Various African peoples lived throughout the vast Sahara and the rugged Nigerian Air region during the ancient Neolithic era. This increased even more. Between 9,000 and 10,000 years ago, in areas where clear traces of ancient agricultural practices have been carefully uncovered and found after extensive excavations, or where vibrant rock paintings have clearly shown that in the region of Niger, which is known today as the Republic of Niger, early people successfully tamed the wild horse, the sturdy cow, and then later on, virtually all of the various domestic animals that you know today. They left traces of this in the painting. We have recently discovered in deep ancient valleys that were once winding riverbeds long ago, that there were organized lives, as evidenced by weapons. Items such as sharp harpoons, flint arrows, decorative pottery, and ornate bronze or copper bracelets have been found. Within the borders of the national territory, this cultural development occurred over 10,000 years ago. Niger is not a small country. 10,000 years ago, if you look at France, there was no social organization. The very first formal political organization in the region of France can be traced all the way back to the year 481. I'm talking about 10,000 years. So Niger, it is not a small country. Niger has historically been and continues to be today the primary gateway to the entire vast interior of West Africa. I am certainly not the only one saying this. Rather, it is a well-established fact based on extensive historical records and rigorous scientific evidence from many sources. Vast forests of ancient silicified trees have recently been discovered within the country of Niger. So, we are an ancient people. We must, every time we take action, understand that we are an ancient people. We are not just anybody. And no one can just trample all over us like that. It was a twist of fate that allowed colonization to happen, but we should see it as just that, a twist of fate. And that we turn the page, and that's what we're doing. Niger is the land of kingdoms and empires. Consider the historical Kanem-Bornu Empire, which spanned from the year 784 all the way until 1900. It stands as one of the longest-lasting continuous reigns ever recorded in human history, quite apart from the famous reigns of the ancient Egyptians of Africa as well. This is particularly fascinating since we have a specific group known as the Mazumawar, who actually provided a ruling pharaoh to the ancient land of Egypt. The Kanem-Bornu, it's been around since 784. So there were others who had the merit of creating something, of consolidating. However, it serves as a vital historical reference because it was the very first to effectively organize the Kanem-Bornu Empire through a structured Muslim social organization. This was led by a ruler who made his sacred pilgrimage to Mecca, who eventually returned to his lands and who formally introduced Islam as the official state religion for all his people. Following his reign, the next ruler was Dunama of Ibalami, though history records that his real name was actually Dunama, the son of Salma of Kuru. He officially reigned during the years of 1221 through 1259. Now, I have a question for you. Do you actually see that specific historical detail mentioned in your modern school textbooks today? He was called Dibalemi. His mother was named Dibali, so Dibalemi means son of Dibali. That's it, Dunama Dibalemi. But his real name is actually Dunama, and he is the son of Selma Bikoru, a man of great importance. He too was a formidable leader who brought immense greatness to the empire of Kanem-Bornu, a man who successfully conquered vast new territories to add to the strength of Kanem-Bornu's legacy. This occurred because the Kanem-Bornu Empire was originally situated within the region of Kanem, which is located in the far northeastern part of Lake Chad. Over time, the empire expanded its reach significantly to include the surrounding area as well as south and southwest of Lake Chad, forming Bornu, which has remained in part up to the present day. After Dunama, there were others such as Ali Ghazi. From the year 1471 until 1506, there was a notable figure named Idris. He was often mistakenly referred to by the name Idris al-Umma, but his true and complete historical name was actually Idris bin Ali bin Idris. He was the specific individual who successfully conquered territories as far as northern Niger, in order to finally open the strategic route leading directly toward Tripolitania. This Idris al-Umma lived or reigned from 1572 to 1603. I'm telling you this because they were leaders, and Nigerians need to know that they don't come from nowhere. They have a glorious past, and it's that past that should be their guiding compass. Bornu was an empire ruled by a sultan. So since the time of Humaydi, it was a sultanate. So in 1067, Bornu, it extended all the way from the east to the west of Niger. Yes, Bornu encompassed that whole country. So already there was a unity present there. After Bornu, if you go a bit further down, you have what is called Mangari. Mangari marks the boundary from Mugno all the way to Chad. That's what Mangari is. Mangari, its old name is Kasagurbe, which in Hausa means Kasagurbe, the land of basins where there are many palm trees, there's water, and where agricultural activities took place. So it's Kasagurbe, but now we call it Mangari. It was the Mandaras who lived in that area. The Mandaras are a subgroup of the large group called the Eso or Sao. There were 4 main groups. There are the Bad, the Kotoko, the Dagara, and the Gamagama. But there are other subgroups, such as the Ngezam. It's a subgroup, but they're small groups. But the main groups are those 4. So the Mangari was also essentially a kingdom, if we can truly call it that, because it began starting from the area of Ngagaru, which is a small town located specifically to the southwest of Cheri. Cheri is a village that still exists today. So that is exactly where the village of Menesoro was first born. Then the Ngagaru people came to Menesoro, and the very first of them, the Digadis. Because he was a true Digaji, his full name was Kafugu, and he was the one who, son of Adam Lafiami, 1800. He was enthroned as Lawan by Sultan Maidunama. After him, it was his children who took over. There was Nafetsa, there was Lafia, there was Abudu, up to the most recent, the Imam. When I say recent, I mean historically. So the Imam, before Liman, there was another who was Kaigama. He was appointed by Amadou Tanimun of Zander, Amadou Tanimun Kurandaga, or Amadou Tanimun Narumji. So he was appointed Kaigama Abdou Kolomi. That's his name. He is the only one who was appointed Kaigama. Otherwise, all the others are Lawans. Then the last one, who is a Kazel or Kazelema. Within the Mangari, there is what is called the Kazele. The Kazel is when you take from the Komadugu, you go back toward Nyingimi all the way to Tal. Watch the programs on Tal TV, you'll see the history of Tal. So up to Tal, that's what is called the Kazeli, and it's within the Mangri. After that, you arrive at Munyo. All of these were kingdoms that existed in Niger. The territory of Mogno was established as a formal principality that was certainly overseen by the Empire of Bornu, but it is important to note that it was also a distinct principality which functioned as a fully independent kingdom during that specific period of history. The Galma founded the Mugno. We came from Hadeja. I don't know if you know Hadeja. Currently, it's in Nigeria. To the east of Hadeja, there's an area that was called Go Garam. It was an area of Ngezem, the small group of Gamagama, as I mentioned. So the one who came to found Munyu, it is believed that the event took place around the years 1400 to 1500. Allahumma alam, God knows best. So he founded it, and there were successors. The first successor was a Mandara chief who was pushed aside by his citizens and who took refuge in Kazegmo since the capital had been Ningime, which was in Kanem. On the other hand, the capital was moved to Kazergmo. Before arriving in Kazergmo, the capital was next to present-day Ningime in Garumele. So he left under pressure from his subjects to take refuge in Kazergmu. His name was Saim. It so happened that Dagalma, the one who founded Muyon, was facing a rebellion. Because there were people making raids to plunder. He went to the Sultan of Bornu at the time to ask for support. And the Sultan of Bornu sent Saimi with his troops to accompany him and suppress the unrest. The infiltrations, the raiding missions, what do you call them, that were being carried out against these populations. When he arrived, they suppressed the unrest, but Princess Saimi decided to stay behind and successfully reclaimed her rightful throne. And from there, Mugno would continue to prosper. Saimi would have descendants. Saimi learned, and then things evolved up to the last one. That was Ibrahim, son of Haji Gawarmi. He was the one who reunified, since, as I told you, at a certain point, each prince had his own capital. We went as far as that capital. It was Ibrahim, son of Haji Gawarmi, who reunified the Munyon. When he passed away, it was his son who succeeded him. He died in 1835. His son Koso succeeded him. He himself died in 1854 at Kangari while returning from an expedition that the Sultan of Bornu at the time had entrusted to him. And that was during the time of Sheikh Lamin, or as he is also called, Mohammed Al-Kanini. So that's the Mugno. After the Mugno, you have the Sosabaki. Originally, it wasn't Sosabaki, since it was the Kutumbawa who were there. Consequently, they established their very first capital city, which was officially known as the ancient and historic capital of Ganwa. This city of Ganwa is a place that dates all the way back to the year 894. So in the 9th century, right? In the 9th century. Ganwa was the capital. There is Mohammed Nafoku, who was sent on a mission from Bornu, Kanem Bornu. When he arrived in Ganwa, he found 3 princes who had left Kanem Bornu. Others say they had fled. First of all, there was a man named Bonet. Then there was Dundurusu, and there was also Darnau. They all resided together in the region of Ganwa, where the local chief was known as Ganda Ganda. I cannot say for certain if my pronunciation of these names is entirely accurate, but that is indeed the name of the chief as I remember it. When Mohammed Naforko arrived to bring them back, they reached a compromise. They said, well, they would give him command of Ganua and expel Ganda Ganda. And that's what happened. Mohammed Naforko agreed. And Ganda Ganda left to found Kanu. The present-day Kanu, the one you hear about. People hesitated. He was the one who left to found Kano, Ganda Ganda. He left Ganua. And after him, Mohammed Naforko, there were more than, according to people, there were more than 50 who succeeded one another, up to Abdoulaye Dambadira. It was he, in 1624, who would take over. Up until then, it was not the Susabaki who would take over the organization of that kingdom until 1672, when he passed away. When he died, it was his son, Mohamedou Uban Saraki, who took over from 1672 to 1703. It was during the reign of Mahmoud Uban Saraki that this area where this kingdom would take the name Sosabaki, because during a war, in a battle, he was slightly wounded on the mouth. So one of his companions told him, Serkis Osabakinka. So disappointed, here are the traces of blood. That's where the name Sosabaki came from. Serkis Osabakinka. And that is exactly how the region of Sosabaki maintained its significant influence and power. There was a continuous and long succession of various tribal chiefs leading the people, right up until the major historical split with Fata. This significant event occurred in the year 1767, at which point the territory of Sosabaki was officially divided into 3 separate parts. You have the Sosabaki of Miria, the Sosabaki of Uwacha, and the Sosabaki of Take, which would end up in Dongas. Currently, the chieftaincy that was originally in Takai is with the other one there. He was the one who was in Takai, and it was his successors, the Mayaki, who brought it back to Dingas, and it has remained in Dingas up to today. So that's the Susabaki. Otherwise, we have the chronology of all the chiefs After that, you have the Damagaram. The ruler of the Damagaram region is known as Malame Nakade. Malame Nakade is a man of deep faith and scholarly pursuit. As a dedicated theology student, he eventually made the difficult decision to leave his home in Bornu behind. His journey led him to seek a new purpose, ultimately choosing to join a specific group of people who are widely recognized as the Koyom. It's a group whose sole focus is religion, meaning it's a group within the community that is responsible for religious matters. And they were in Belbelek. Sheikh Abdoulaye was their leader. Back in the year 1689, there was also a tragic repeat of these violent actions, involving the widespread and systematic pillaging of the land. Belbelek was abandoned. Belbelek is located next to Derua, even today, 70 kilometers east of Gure. There's Derua. Those who know the area are aware, Derua is east of Gure, 70 kilometers. So Belbelek was the capital. It was abandoned because it had been pillaged. The theology student, known as Yunus, left to go to Damagaram, what we now call Damagaram Takaya, to continue his study. Because over there, since he was from Agara, he found members of the Agara family. He was there when, a few years later, the same city faced the same threats. He left to go 50 kilometers further south to found the city now known as Geza. And I believe it still exists to this day. He was a pious figure who performed many miracles. Go to Zender, you'll see for yourself. So he is the one who is at the origin of Damagara. At that time, there were 5 villages. There was Geza, first, there was Gorgori, then came the era of Ankezu, followed closely by the likes of Ganescu, then Garyuru, and finally, we saw the arrival of Badakara. So it was these villages that made up, Zender wasn't even in the picture yet. So after him, it was his son. There was a man who was widely known by the name of Baba. Baba, the son of Yunus, or to be more precise, Baba, the son of Malam Menakade. Following the time of Baba, the succession passed to one of his own sons, who was called Tanimun Babami. It's important to note that Tanimun Babami means Tanimun, son of Baba. As I said, Dunama Dibalami, Dunama, son of Dibali. So it's pretty much the same thing. This is to show you that it was the same culture. So when Tanimun Babami took over, he ruled for about 10 years. Then it was his children who succeeded him. Asafa, who was chief until 1782, unfortunately he died in combat during a battle, an incursion by the Imakiten, who had come to plunder. So it was during this battle that he died. He was replaced by Agaza, who succeeded him. Then another one called Malam, Babu Saba, and so on, up to Suleiman and Tintuma. It was Suleiman and Tintuma who, for the first time, brought the capital back to Zender. I don't know who was a city founded by a hunter. So it was Suleiman and Tintuma who brought the capital back to Zender. And from there, the story continues up to Amadou Tanimun Korande. When they arrived in Bonu, first they stayed for 250 years. They arrived in the Ayer and stayed for 250 years. They arrived for the first time in Warnaka, Birnilale, and stayed for 80 years. Then they went back to Shimankol, to the same capital, Tinchaman, where they stayed for 250 years. And it was when they returned, having settled permanently in this area, from which they began to spread out across the Gobi towards the interior of Nigeria. Today, the Zanfra next, the Adder, then the Kwoni and the Dendi, the Kebi. That's it, the story of the Gobi too, so it's not, we did not come from nothing, we even passed through gloriously. And if you go to Koni Koni, it's still the same migration from the Gobra lineage. The first chief, his name was Wari. Wari is the son of Manto. Manto is the brother of Tawa, the queen I mentioned from Gober. Manto is her brother. It is Manto's son who is called Wari. He is the first chief of Koni. After him, over several centuries, because people say that more than 300 succeeded him. And what has been remembered, since people didn't often write things down, is Abdul Qadir, who stayed in Nadeber. Nadeber is a village 20 kilometers northeast of Koni Nadeber. I believe the village still exists today. So Abdul Qadir, after Abdul Qadir came Bana, after Bana came Mamandamka, and so on. Alu, Buzu, up to Koro, and so forth, with Koro, who died in 1791, up to the last one, Mohammed, who faced the Vule Chanouan mission. So that's what's known. You leave, you have the Arewa. I need to say, so that the Nigerians understand, we are not nothing. We did not come from nothing. There is the Arewa. The Arewa, before it was the Arewa, was the Hazana. But here too, people have a poor understanding of things. It was the people Azana. It was a people that encompassed all of us, the Azana. We held significant historical influence in the region of Abzin. We maintained a strong presence in what is now known as Kebi, and we also exerted our authority across the lands of what is now Zamfara, where they even established their primary capital city, Kutur, as it was formerly called. We were influential in that part of the country, which is now Arewa. We extended our influence as far as Kurfaye. They were the Azana. The Azana people continued to live in that specific region until the eventual arrival of the young child who was referred to as the Prince Harry, the son of the other leader, Kulumbu, who had arrived from the distant lands. Wasn't it Harry? The one who came, he was sent, a messenger for Gao, the Songhai Empire. So some think it was around 1500. Others think it was a bit earlier. But either way, he stopped at Bagaji, where he married a girl from Bagaji, and he had a child who would be named Akazama, because he would leave him there. Akazama. He too, when he grew up, went to look for his father in Bornu. When he arrived, Harry had died, but his grandfather Colombo was still alive. So his grandfather told him, well, from now on, you will be the representative of Bornu, where you are in Kasamala. That's where he became the first chief, if we can say that, of what would become the group who bore the scars. Before, there were no scars because they were azanas. In any case, not the two scars that run from the corners of the mouth to the ears. Those didn't exist. The first ones appeared with Akazama, and it was precisely in that location where the indigenous Maori people were first born. And they eventually formed a remarkably powerful kingdom that flourished under the wise leadership of its many chiefs. Akazama, he would marry Mantu. She was a girl from Bagaj, and he would move to Tulu. He would settle in Tulu. They would have a child, Salma. It was Salma who would have several children, including Kada, Koli, and Gagara. And they would also become chiefs in the lineage, except for Gagara, who would leave because he had conflicts with his older brother, Kada. He would leave to settle in a village in Kurfayawa called Nasarawa. I don't know if Nasarawa exists or not, but that's where Gagara would go. It was a village that was inhabited by the Azana Kurfayawa. Following after them, many others would eventually follow in their footsteps, such as the Mainasara, the Alborka, the Mohammed, and the Bachuachua. Furthermore, there is yet another notable individual known as Babon Loma, who is particularly well known and respected throughout the region. Then there's Barba, then there's Kabrin Kabran. And all the others, Tamo, then Debokoi, that's the succession. Just to tell you that it's not insignificant. We go down ladder. Later was not always later. The first name, it's an ancient people, Azana. It was the Dare. It remained known as the Dare until the year 1674. This was the historical moment when Agaba, the noble son of Muhammad al-Mubarak, who was himself the direct descendant of Yusuf, would finally arrive to conquer the lands of the Dare. There was a whole complex chain of historical events that will lead, since long before, what I haven't yet mentioned, whether it was the Darai people or whether it was the Abzin tribe, all the way to the final act of paying the required tax at the end. Kebi, Abzin, over there. You leave the Abzin mixture with sand and with water to slowly bring it together like a pot for Kebi. To the canton of Kebi. So there was a series of events that led to, in 1614, after 3 attempts led by Abbasi, who was supposed to occupy Darai, he failed. Agaba asked his father, Mohammed al-Mubarak, for permission to go himself to conquer Darai. And that was precisely when he arrived in the year 1614. During this time, he successfully defeated the Serkin Darai at Tasek and ultimately killed him. The Serkin Kebi of the Kanta, a man named Suleiman who had arrived specifically to provide reinforcements, was also soundly defeated while he was in the middle of crossing a body of water known as the Kuido Pond. He drowned. That's where the name Adar was given, the name Adar. Otherwise, before it was called Dare, and it was from 1674 that the capital would be established, Birni Adar, between Gorom and Taruada. It's not far from Tamaske. That's where the first capital would be placed, of Adar with Agaba as the first Sarkin Adar. After him, it was his son, Mahmud Udamu, who succeeded him. And after Mahmud Udamu, it was Mahmud Udamu's brother, known as Baba, who succeeded him, and then Mahmud Udamu's own son, Al-Mustafa, who succeeded after that, and so on until the split with Yakuba, who, for the first time, moved the capital. He is here. He's here? Yes, he's here as of today. It was Yaqub who moved the capital to Ilela. That was what was called the Folokom. The Adair was divided into 3 parts. There was the Folokom, the Adair of Uchi, and the Eastern Adair. The Folokom is when you go from Mogor to Oni. That was called the Folokom. Then the Adair of Uchi is between Tamaske. Atawa, that strip there, that's the Adair of Uchi. Next, the Eastern Adair is where you have Buza and Eta. And at the head of each section, there is, the Aiswan. Because when he came, Mohammed, the author Agaba, he came with the Aiswan. So that's the Adar. Before it was the Adar, it was the Dare. There too, it was a powerful kingdom. Then you go down to Doso, even if it's a bit more recent. But it's basically the same thing. The settlement of Doso represents the historical continuation of the Great Migration that originally left Dirma, located between Timbuktu and Djenné, and eventually arrived in the city of Gao during the 1490s. Gao with Adjerse, because Sambo, his father, Napa, did not reach Gao, he died in Tilibamba. However, the primary leader who was in charge of the Great Dirma Migration, which took place between the cities of Timbuktu and Djenné, was a man known by the name of Alpha Umoru. After him, it was Ibrahim. After Ibrahim, Tugagu succeeded him. After Tugagu, there was another one called Jarmele. Next, Dawale. Next, we look at Sambo. Sambo was the father of the noble Adierse, who would eventually meet his end at the Battle of Tilbamba. It was this same Adierse who would lead the Great Migration all the way to the city of Gao, where his people were even considered to be a vital part of the elite military corps within the powerful army of Askia. When they attacked Borgu, there was a military corps. Germain was with them when they left in 1515 to invade Agadez. We mention Agadez since Agadez was already the Abzin in their sovereignty, as Agadez was under the control of Bornu. So when he left, he also had a military corps. So that's Niger. Malibero was not born in Adrambukan. When people say that he was the one who raised a kind of army, no, he was born in Saptaka. Saptaka is here between Lanzuru and what has now become Zarmagande, since at that time Zarmagande did not exist. So it is there in Saptaka that Malibero was born. His father's name is Mane, he has a nickname Ramu, and he has a brother called Molamboti. He is the son of Tatu, and Tatu himself is the son of Adjerse. He was the one who led their movement to Gao after the death of their father, Sambo. He would then lead the migration all the way to the exit from Korkandi. And now it is Adierse who will lead them as far as a town called Duskuji. From Duskuji, it is Tatu, the son, who will take over the migration up to Adrambukan. That is the migration from Adrambukan onward. Molomboti, Mane's brother, they will all be born in Adrambukan. Dodia, it's a bit at the same level as the movement and the pond that's always there. That's where they will be born. Mane will leave to come to Saptaka, Mane. And he's the one who's going to give, he was also called Ramu, he's the one who's going to give. Born in Mali, Gamandugoza. And Mali, Gamandugoza will be the father of Bukar Colombi, or Bukar. Lolo Buki, he is Mali's son. Gamandugoza, so that's it. Doso, the sequel, the Songhai. To come full circle, the Songhai, in Songhai, people reject their past. The Songhai was not born where it is today. That is to say, the Songhai upstream towards, I don't know, Tiliberi, as far as Gao. No. Before the Songhai, the word Songhai itself, it was only in 1510 that people started using the word Songhai. With whom? You hear Tariq al-Faita, Tariq al-Fatak, that's Muhammad Kati, the one who would use the word Songhai for the first time. Just like the Ayer, by the way, the Ayer, it was in 1526 with Leo Africanus, whose real name was Hassan al-Wazal. He was a Moroccan. He is the father of diplomacy, Hassan al-Wazal. He was returning from pilgrimage. He studied theology. He was going on pilgrimage. On his return, he was taken hostage by the Knights of St. John. A certain Pedro de Bobadilla. Pedro de Bobadilla. Bobadilla is a Spanish town. He will take Hassan al-Wazan hostage, and he will take his master's name, because they are going to offer it to Pope Leo de Medici. And he will be Leon, the African. But it was to Pope Leo de Medici that he was given as a captive. He is Hassan al-Wazan, and he is also Leon the African. He is the father of diplomacy. He traveled to all the countries of the world during major events. Go ahead, look up Hassan al-Wazan or Leon the African, and you'll see his biography. So he was the one who mentioned Aikir for the first time. Otherwise, it was the Abzin in 1526. Since he had come as far as Abzi, the African world. So the Songhai Empire actually has its historical origins between our region of Dandi, which is today's origin point, stretching from Dandi towards Gaya, all the way to the lands of Kebi, to Zamfara, and even to Sokoto. All of that vast territory was known as ancient Kebi, representing the very first origin of the early Tianga people. This history, you have to be proud of your past. People link the Songhai to a Lamta who came from Yemen. Which Yemen? The Songhai 664, for those who dated the earliest, 690. But before 690, where was the Songhai? The Songhai was there in Kebi today, between the Dendi in Niger and Kebi in Nigeria. That was where the Songhai originated. And as proof, Soni Ali Ber, one of the most renowned leaders, where was he born? In Biro, which would later be renamed Walata. That's on the other side of Gaya, inside what is today Benin. He is going to leave Farouk. It's not that he leaves his mother, but rather because they rebelled against the king of the time. He subdued them and they fled. They took refuge in Biro, which would become Walata. It is there that Soni Ali Ber would be born. People think it was around the 1420s or so. He would be born there. He would become a great warrior. And he would return to Farouk, since the capital was in Farouk. He would return to Farouk and enlist in the royal army. When he came of age, he would prove himself. He would decide to join his father, his paternal family, who were already in Gao. That is precisely what would lead the ruler, Soni Ali Ber, to make his move. He would eventually leave to go to the city of Gao and would successfully take power in the year 1464. He reigned for many years before finally passing away on October 23rd, 1492. He was returning from the Monsi after an expedition. The Monsi today is inside Burkina, which was not the case back then, at the time I was speaking. So he would die along the way before reaching Gao. The Songhai has its origins. You see Kukia, Ugungia, you see Ansango. These are cities that once existed in what is now Kebbi at the border near Sokoto, which today is Zamfara. These are the same cities that were renamed. Just like when people leave, for example, if you leave and go to a neighboring country, bringing back your Zongo neighborhood is the same thing. We baptized Koki, Ogungi, Kumbia, then Anzongo was named. All of these were cities that existed on that side. The last one, Askia Isiak. We're not talking about the Soni who left there to go to Gao. It was Askia Ishak II, specifically when he was defeated for the very first time in battle, occurring on April 12, 1592. Isn't that right? Then we must also consider the year 591 as well. April 12, 1591. Then a second time on October 14, 1592. Again. The first time was at Tondibi. The second time was in a village called Bamba. That's where the Songhai army was defeated. For the second time, October 14th, 1591. 1591, not 92, 1591. When he was defeated, he left. Gao, so the Gao region, to take refuge in Kebbi. This happened in Tara. The village still exists today. That's where the Kanta of Kebbi told him no, he would not allow him to enter Kebbi. If he didn't know that his family was there, why would he go there? Wasn't it Mohammed Toure who overthrew the Chibaru, the son of Soni? I told you, Soni died on October 23rd, 1492. It was his son who succeeded him. He was called the Chibaru because it was the Soni dynasty at that time. It was his son who succeeded him. And this son, Chibaru, or rather Damanzon. Da, because the first dynasty was made up of A or Da. So Damanzon is the son of Soni Aliber, whom they call the Chibaru. It's the Soni dynasty. It was Askia Mohammed who overthrew him on March 3rd, 1493 at Angu. The battle took place at Angu on March 3rd, 1493, and Chibaru was defeated. When he was defeated, he returned to what is now Niger, in the region of Iru. He tried to reclaim his reign for about 10 years, until 1500, when he was finally defeated for good. Some of his companions took refuge in Anzuru, present-day Anzuru. That's it. They were the ones who were with Chibaru, the last Soni, those who took refuge in Anzuru, then towards Saya over there, heading towards Tera. And they spread out across all those areas through a crossing point that was Gote. At that time, Gote was a crossing point. So that's a bit about what the Songhai is. And the Songhai had ancestral ties with the Tianga of Kebbi. The Ki and the Nga is the same thing. It's Tianga. We should be proud of our past. I'm telling you this for the Nigerians who are listening to me and for whom I took the time to write this down and go over it again. Our long history, our ancient past from the early Paleolithic to the late Neolithic and continuing all the way up to today. Or in this time, France, for whom they act as messengers, didn't even exist. We must listen to every understanding of man. When does the first Cro-Magnon date from? Less than 20,000 years ago? The first Cro-Magnon, that's the white race today, the first dates from less than 20,000 years ago. As I told you, Niger, 2.6 million years ago, when we look at the Upper Paleolithic in Niger, traces were found. Human traces, I'm not talking about animal traces, human traces of people who carried out activities, who had harpoons. And when we move down into the Neolithic, it's even more flourishing. So we are not nothing, we have a past. People let themselves be influenced by petty individuals who have no past, who have no glory to recount in their history. We are not worth nothing. We have never been worth nothing. Millions of years ago, or tens of thousands of years ago, it's not today that someone will think that Niger is the poorest country. Who told you that? Niger is not the poorest country, that's all. Let Nigerians understand they are not nothing and they must stand together. Today, I challenge anyone to withdraw. Alone, I say, in a corner of their house, making sure that none of their children are nearby, and start listing. His grandfather 1, his grandfather 2, his grandfather 3, his grandfather 4, his grandfather 5. If he can go up to 10 and does not find a single overlap, let him come and tell me. If you were to travel from the far west here all the way across to the distant east, you would find that there isn't a single group of people living on this vast land today who hasn't already resided here for at least 300 long years. It has been at least 300 years of a deeply shared life and a common history together throughout this entire region. 2,000 years, 3,000 years, 4,000 years for some. How can you say that you are the best? The best compared to whom? I forgot about the Pule people here in Jaladio. The Pule people of Jaladio come from Masina. They are called the Jaladio. The first migration dates back to 1250. Here in Jaladio, this is not the recent migration from 1800. With Mohammed Dialadio, who came, he himself came as part of the earlier migration he had heard about. Mohammed Dialadio, the one who left his son Ibrahim, Mohammed Dialadio, who was in power when Montoy arrived in 1891, and with whom he signed a protectorate agreement on August 12, 1891. There were monuments, including one next to the central police station, which is now Thomas Sankara Square. He found Ibrahim Mohammed Jalayo there. The Jalayo migration dates back to 1250. They are peoples. The Toro, their migration goes back to 1300. This is the great migration of the Dems who continued on, or this world of Amfodio that existed. At the court of Baoui Jean Gorzo, a prince of the court of Baoui Jean Gorzo in Gobir Usuman. Amfodio was a prince because he was the one who mastered writing. He was educated in Agadez, Usumane, Amfodio, so he knew how to write, and he was like a prince at the court of Baoui Jean Gorzo, the Gobir Circle, from 1716, I think until 1884, if I remember correctly. This is to tell you there isn't someone, the bull, his name is Dele, the one who led them so they could settle. Bull, literally, apparently it means that he is the one who does his prayers sitting down, since they are Muslims. So before, it wasn't something you saw everywhere. So they are described as those who do their prayers sitting down. That's what the word bull means. But otherwise, they were gourmandiers. The gourmandiers, the Monsi, were on the left bank of the Niger. The gourmandiers left the left bank around the middle of the 3rd century, around 250. They crossed over. The Monsi followed them a little later, around 600. They also crossed over. Otherwise, before, they were called later that area from Jamare of the Sirba up to Jamangu. It was the Monsi and the gourmandiers. Then the Pels arrived. The first migration, as I told you, was in 1250 with the Jelajos who settled in Jelajo, today still Jelajo, and the second wave, the Demes who left a bit towards the Masina. Also, others left the Tekru to come and continue. And it was the same migration that continued on towards Gobi, towards Kassina, and kept going all the way to Ademawa. It was the same Demes who continued all the way there. On the Benue River, it's them who are over there. All the Fulani you will see. 800 years, and people tell me that no one has
thoroughly intermixed together.
People need to think. What they're being pushed to do now, they're actually doing against their own country. What drives them to do it? Today, go to France, try praying in the street. I'd like to see that. You're Muslim, you do jihad. Go to France, pray in the street. In Niger, where is the street where you can't stop to pray at prayer time? Who's going to say anything to you? No one. So it's just a distraction. We are an ancient people with our own values, with our religious capabilities. When people are told you're doing jihad compared to what? Compared to Niger, where 99% are Muslims. You're doing jihad where you steal, you loot, you set fires because the French told you to set fires? No. Nigerians need to understand we are alone, and the challenge I'm talking about, everyone should keep repeating it to themselves. If he knows his history, then fine. If he doesn't know, then let him tell me which branch he comes from. I want to tell him, I want to show him, retrace his path for him. We are one. When someone thinks they're superior to another, that's ignorant. He doesn't know his past, he doesn't know his history, whoever he may be. And I challenge him on that. So it looks like we are finally together. We are together. We have a fight that we must all wage together, without distinction, without segregation. Nigerians need to understand. They have a civilization that is millions of years old. Obama, thousands of years old. It's not me saying this, it's historical facts that say so. Back in 1959, while the dedicated team at the Bureau of Geological and Mining Research was actively conducting extensive field research across the region, they unexpectedly stumbled upon a significant and remarkably large deposit of completely pure copper. That means our people had the technology to extract copper from the bedrock. It's a technique that uses salt. That technique, Westerners discovered it in 1925. I've said it many times. Tegidante Sum was the flagship of the copper industry until 1300. 1300, 14th century. Tegidante Sum was the pride of the copper industry. All those who ended up in southern Nigeria, the Igbos, the Yorubas, where were they? They were in the Ayer or in the Abzin. They were in the Ingale region. People just need to look for their own history. They didn't fall from the sky. They didn't cross the ocean to settle in southern Nigeria. They crossed the Niger. These are historical facts.
These are
Historical facts. We are not nothing. We need to avoid being divided by people who don't even know their own history. I know that among those who say these things, those who are in Europe, they came. Even after the Second World War in France, they're the ones acting all high and mighty today. After the Second World War, when we were even helping France, after the Second World War, in 1944, in Filengui, we collected honey, corn flour, millet flour, weaving. They were reading Kazande's memoirs. Or go talk to Professor Fermont, he'll tell you. The French cities that Nigerian cities sponsored after the Second World War. Now they're going to call us beggars. We, who in 1944 sponsored French cities to which we brought food aid. These are facts, these are historical facts that are there. No one can hide them. No matter how much you try to hide them, we read, we discover, and we tell you. Niger is not nothing.
Mr. President, we will continue this major interview. You have often spoken about the communication war waged against Niger, its institutions and its political authorities since the CNSP came to power and the patriotic choice of Nigerians to assume their sovereignty. What is the situation today, knowing that we have observed a relative calm on social networks following your historic tournament, which truly unsettled even the staunchest opponents of the refoundation?
In fact, nothing can withstand it. That's what gives this impression of calm on social networks. I say we traveled 4,083 kilometers. Not a single incident. But go out now after that and say that Niger is not doing well. We drove both day and night, midnight, 1:30 a.m. No other regime in history has ever done this. I know many people have traveled around these areas before, but no regime has actually driven right through the heart of the cities, and I mean the most dangerous cities, at midnight, 1 a.m., or even 1:30 in the morning. We did exactly that. We showed the world that it's true. The immense challenges are certainly there, but there is also a sense of calm. The return toward peace is a reality. It's not just an impression or a feeling. No, it's a reality. But the challenges still remain fierce. We are not naive. The challenges still remain fierce. This is because those specific individuals for whom we have definitively ended the game, exactly as you previously mentioned, will certainly never miss even the slightest possible opportunity to strike back and cause us significant, lasting harm in any way they can. They will never stop. It's a feeling, but we remain vigilant. That's what I can say in response to that. It's a feeling, but we remain vigilant. It's a reality, it's true. We have traveled through all the regions, but we remain vigilant without any incident. And at all hours, we didn't just travel for 2 days so that people could say, oh, no, look, we just made some trips. I told Telebe when we were coming back from Terra, it was around 10 p.m. when we got back. During your whole stay and overall experience with us,
National tour, you called on and encouraged economic operators to create banks and industrial units to process local products. Did they respond positively? Also, can we get an idea of what the state is doing on its side in this regard in terms of measures, initiatives, incentives, and strategic partners in particular? Finally, can we have a precise idea of the companies created since the advent of the CNSP, as well as the amount of exemptions granted by the state?
thank you. As I said before, we are pragmatic. And we rely on ourselves to initiate any development action. I believe there are facts that prove it. Ever since we first arrived here at the site, we have successfully reached a grand total of 92 individual industrial units that have now been officially approved. That is a total of 92 units in all. I'm not saying that all of them are operational, since I am aware of the challenges that economic operators face. And that is the reason for my appeal. It's not just in Marain. Everywhere, I have reminded economic operators of their duty to create jobs. You cannot be an economic operator. A celebration.
Thank you so much, families, for listening up to this stage. If you are still here, I'm grateful for your time, for listening. It means it is very important to you and you are taking one or two things. Now we come to the natural resources, the uranium. Why they were taking it, since when, and the terms and conditions that was given to them before. I wonder sometimes what kind of leaders some of our Africa countries have. And I wonder if they really think of the citizens or even themselves before signing away those contracts, or even not sign, but just nod, agree on whatever they will tell them. Is disgusting, it's nasty. Some of them even think that uranium is poison to them, and so they should take it away and give them nothing. And so they have to pay them to take it away from them, because that's what they told them. Yes, it's dangerous, it can destroy, it can pollute them, but whether they are taking it or not is polluting them. So why not use the money to develop the country instead? Families, please listen to the quandary, according to our President, General Abdourahmane Tiani, of the uranium and the rest of the natural resources that is making other countries rich and making them poor. I'll be back.
Served better than oneself. We have tried all the options, and we have seen the limits. That's the least we can say about each option, from uranium to the oil that is being discussed. We have seen the objective limits. So the first barrel is tied to SONIDEP's ability to mobilize economic players who will finance the work. Since we're no longer talking about exploration, it's already been proven. There are significant reserves, so it's about production and exploitation work.
Regarding uranium, we saw images of trucks, then information suggesting that uranium had been sold by Niger to Russia. What exactly is the situation, Mr. President?
I don't know. I haven't seen the images. The uranium belongs to Niger. I don't have any particular comments to make. Things keep stirring up. But we have chosen our own path. Let me give you a bit of the history of uranium in Niger. Uranium deposits in the nation of Niger were first discovered back in 1959 during the extensive and major prospecting works I previously mentioned, during which time significant amounts of pure copper were also found in the region of Tegdentes. It was indeed a remarkable period for discovery. It was during that specific historical period that they successfully discovered significant deposits of uranium in the areas near Azelik and Madawela. A short while later, they eventually discovered the whereabouts of Somair, Uvala, and Kominak. It was specifically during this historical period, back in 1959, on a very significant day, April 24th, 1961 already. They had signed a decree over there in their own country stating that the Republic of Niger and other republics, which I won't name for personal reasons, accept. And this initiative will make it significantly easier for the French armed forces to securely store essential raw materials and various strategic products. On the date of 1961, April 24th, a specific decree was established in the vital interest of national defense and security. In certain situations, these specific authorities may be required to impose strict limitations or even completely prohibit the movement of exports altogether. The interest of defense, not of those countries, not of Niger. In the interest of French defense, Niger will be required to limit the export of its resources and strategic products, or outright ban them. In 1967, you have to look at the exchanges between Diori Hamani and Jacques Faucart, or someone like that. It was on the 13th of November in the year 1967. When Diori Hamani was earnestly pleading with him and imploring him to refuse to permit or authorize the officials from the Atomic Energy Commission to carry out the specific conditions that would lead to the systematic plundering of the nation's resources. He didn't say plundering because he couldn't say it. I'm the one calling it plundering. The conditions for the plundering of our uranium. 2 days later, Jacques Faucart replied to the President of the Republic, Diori Hamani, on November 15, 1967. Mr. President, well, even this, isn't it ungrateful? Mr. President, you should truly consider yourself exceptionally lucky that the esteemed members of the Atomic Energy Commission are currently exploiting your vast uranium reserves. You must be profoundly grateful. You should express your deepest gratitude to the dedicated officials of the Atomic Energy Commission, and you must also be immensely grateful to the high French authorities. Furthermore, you should thank heaven every single day for this magnificent blessing that has been so graciously bestowed upon you and your nation.
Given to you.
And thank heaven for this grace that has been given to you. These are writings that exist that can be verified. Yes, there are records. Diori Hamani understood that things were not going well. He did not get discouraged. He wrote in November, on November 20th, 1968, to de Gaulle to inform him about what the Atomic Energy Commission wanted to do. Because in the contract, what do they say? That Niger will not collect any taxes. There was a tax called the specific tax on fuels. Niger will not take that. Niger will exempt the CEA, so Somaïr. Niger will agree to lose 50% of taxes on commercial and industrial profits, 50%. The nation of Niger will donate 100,000 shares to the ECA as a courtesy to help offset expenses. In an even more favorable development, the government of Niger will officially exempt all other associated subsidiary companies that work closely with it by a margin of 13%. Furthermore, what is the current status regarding the situation in Somalia? And at the time, that represented a net loss of 1 billion CFA francs in Niger, 500 million for the 100,000 shares, 500 million TCA, which makes 1 billion. At the time, Hamani did not get discouraged, so he wrote to de Gaulle. Unfortunately, de Gaulle, who apparently shared his perspective, was not able to make any progress because the lobby was stronger than de Gaulle. We have to be honest about it. In the end, it was all for nothing. And then, a significant period of time later, in the year 1968, there was the early constitutional referendum, where Charles de Gaulle was ultimately forced to step down from his position. Consequently, Georges Pompidou took over the presidency. Diori did not give up. He wrote again to Pompidou. Pompidou told him that they would correct these anomalies, to be a bit diplomatic. But nothing changed. The CA ended up taking the 5,000 shares without paying a single franc. What's more, there was a company, a German one, Irrigation, more or less, And then an Italian one, Eni, which at the time had been very fair with Diori Hamani, because they agreed to pay for 52,388 shares each. They agreed to make available to Diori Hamani, each of them, 1 billion CFA francs repayable at an interest rate of 2.5% over a period of 15 years with a 5-year grace period. 15 years, 2.5% interest. The French authorities saw all of these developments unfolding before them, and as a result, they committed to buying 124 tons of the total annual uranium production output each and every year. This is a significant arrangement which goes directly back to the nation of Niger. Historically, the French only had this one specific colony in the region, which they firmly believed they deserved to maintain control over. They persisted, they held on. And that's how things were until we arrived. I told you that Nigerians came out, and not just anyone, to say that our uranium is worth less than clay. At least clay is used to build houses in our villages. But Iran is useless. We might as well let the French rid us of this danger. Poison. So to tell you the truth, Diori didn't have a good reason for this mentality. Meanwhile, we have the town of Cominac, which is where uranium was first discovered many years ago. In that region as well, there was a prominent Japanese corporation involved in the operations, as it was officially called. This was Uranium Overseas, also known as the Uranium Resources Development Company Limited, or URD for short, which signed a highly significant and responsible agreement with the government of Niger, where the nation of Niger could eventually benefit from
the returns.
The French also took a 45.5% stake of the total shares available there. Niger ended up with 32% on the first day of June in the year 1970, at the moment when the formal agreement was officially signed between URD, which is a prominent Japanese company, and Ovakis, the Uranium Resources Development Company Limited. This also included Cominac, acting as the French branch, and the sovereign state of Niger. Tell me, are you familiar with the specific terms and conditions of that historic agreement? It was widely understood and officially recognized that the Atomic Energy Commission held significant legal rights within the Arlit region. Consequently, that is the specific way we have always approached our operations and long-term planning in that area. Kept our country in poverty, under domination, and with the exploitation of its resources. On July 26th, when we arrived, July 26th, 2023, we found 156,231 tons of uranium. 156,231 tons of uranium. Out of the 156, the share that goes to the French, who are making all the noise, is 63. And those same French people, they are the ones today claiming ownership of several thousand. What did they do as soon as we arrived? Was their hostility hidden? The French withdrew all their personnel. They withdrew security. They disconnected, I say.
The servers. Yes.
Yes. Everything that was installed to allow them to control things, since it was all managed from their side, they disconnected it. Because they thought we were wild geese and that we weren't capable of handling things ourselves. They disconnected. They sent out messages several times everywhere to scare off the operators. In this area, Niger is run by crooks who are looting the uranium from Somail. So French uranium. However, they were fully aware of the fact that their specific share was significantly less than a total of 100 metric tons. When you perform the calculation based on the figure of 156.231 tons and the 63.4% portion that is allocated to them. Still, despite this knowledge, they decided to completely halt all of their future investment opportunities. We don't even talk about it. We said that we need to meet with the union of employees in that sector. After meeting the various officials, especially the general managers and others, this resource will eventually become national. We must be willing to endure significant sacrifices. to demonstrate clearly that the collapse France is trying to provoke is simply not going to happen. They explained to us that they continued to produce goods even during the difficult colonial times. Now that they have finally regained their hard-won independence, they are certainly not going to stop now. They are willing to make sacrifices if the state supports them, because they are heads of families with responsibility. And we agreed on a way to actually move forward in that direction. The state invested over 18 billion and Sopamin invested over 6 billion. So that's over 24 billion in total. And we continued production year in, year out, with periods of very low production due to logistical reasons and periods of acceptable production. And that's when we produce these quantities today that the French, who think we are still in the same frame of mind as in 1961, continue to demand what rightfully belongs to the Nigerian people who have invested money to produce. And that's what all this fuss they're making is about. They wrote for the first time in September 2023. If you remember, when Mulifi came here, it was to accuse us of having sold 300 tons to Iran. That was the French who wrote to send thank you. To the Americans to say that we sold 300 tons to Iraq in September 2023. And these very same French people, who feel absolutely no sense of shame for their actions, will inevitably return in May of 2024 to openly admit that they have completely lost all control of the situation. Somai, and to declare the total cessation on October 31st of their participation in the production of Somai. And to conclude that they are in the red in January, if you remember January or February 2025, because since the junta came, not a single gram of uranium has been sold. You who say that we sold 300 tons in September 2023, that's just to tell you. Then they came back recently. They went to tell the Americans that we had sold 1,000 or so tons to the Chinese. Every time they know there's a country in a trade dispute with the United States, that's the country they say we sell to. They said Iran. Molifi came. We told him what we think. Because as people say, we don't hold our tongues. In truth, we fear only Allah. She left. We saw what that caused. Again, they went on to say, the Americans, that the 1,000 or so tons, it's to the Chinese. But you know the standoff between China in the commercial sector? Yes, but that didn't stop negotiations from continuing between China and the United States. Which is not the case with France, because France is convinced that we are worth nothing and that our uranium belongs to them for free. That's the difference. So they lied again by saying that we sold 1,000 or so tons to the Chinese. Well, we know what we're doing. We don't need to justify ourselves, especially regarding something that rightfully belongs to us, something for which we had invested significant amounts of money. In our current situation, 24 billion is not peanuts. So that's it, uranium. But everything they do is just to try to find out what's going on. Who did we sell it to? How is it going to be transported? They have even gone so far as to threaten us directly, saying that if the shipment ever leaves the facility, they will deploy their highly trained mercenaries to attack the convoy. Or if it leaves Arlit, they will use those same mercenaries to intercept and seize the entire convoy by force. And even on the high seas, if it is loaded onto a ship, they will intercept the ship. That's the French. But that is entirely a matter for them to worry about. As for us, why should we even begin to concern ourselves with their idle remarks? We have embarked upon a definitive path and made a conscious choice that certainly comes with its own set of significant challenges. But we remain absolutely confident in our direction because the vast majority of the people stand firmly by our side. The people know that everything we do and everything we will do is in the interest of the Nigerian population. So the shouting, the barking, the neighing, and other bellowing noises cannot make us change our course. The most important thing is to be sincere in what we do for our fellow citizens. The rest, their state of mind, matters little. That's what I can say regarding Iran. He is Nigerian. Niger has invested. France has it 63.4% of 156,231 tons. If they want tomorrow, when we send it to them, we pay for the transport ourselves to deliver it because they were there at the time it was produced. But everything produced afterwards is Nigerian and will remain Nigerian, inshallah.
Thank you so much, families, for listening up to this stage. From what you just heard, what are you feeling? What are you thinking? And when I was working on this video, what came into my mind was the ex-president, maybe a month or two ago, when I reacted on one of his speeches. It's only that video I've reacted on, that he said France does not need Niger, but Niger is the one that needs France. Listening to the terms and how they were looting them, this man really think about his people. And why do some Nigerians want him back? Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. I can't believe what I'm hearing, but it is what it is. Sometimes I wonder where our mind, our brain is, some of these leaders. I'm looking down because I'm still working on more. Wow. Anyway, you'll be happy to know that the economy is doing good, is doing great. According to General Abdourahmane Tiani, the president, is saying that they are not going to be begging for food anymore. They don't need aid. They don't need food aid. Any other thing is welcome, but when it comes to feeding themselves, no, because we have seen what they are doing. He will explain it more. I'll be back.
Subject a bit, Mr. President. All Nigerians agree in recognizing that one of the greatest achievement of your administration is in the field of agriculture with large-scale irrigation. Can we have some details, and above all, what are the prospects for our country?
Actually, I think I will go ahead and start with the very last question. The prospects for our country are promising. In less than 2 years of experimentation, large-scale irrigation has proven itself. Upon our initial arrival, we were forced to ask ourselves exactly what kind of situation did we face. We encountered a brutal and wild embargo, a situation where even the most essential medical supplies were strictly blocked at the Malamville-Gaya border crossing. I am specifically talking about vital pharmaceutical products. Furthermore, the electricity was completely cut off, as I am sure you clearly remember. And on whose orders? On the orders of Emmanuel Macron? And that's when they executed it instantly. We drew our conclusions. No form of dependence can bring happiness to a people. A people who choose to live in dependence will live miserable and unhappy all their lives. We collectively agreed. Let's at least possess the necessary foresight and wisdom to guarantee the security of our own food supply. We shouldn't wait for rice to come to us from outside. We shouldn't wait for corn to come to us from outside. As for millet and cowpeas, I won't even mention them. So what exactly should we do now? What should we do? We have all the advantages in Niger. We have water, we have land, 1,267,000 square kilometers. Even in the Tenere, if you plant or sow something, it will grow. All you need to do is bring water. We have the sun. God has blessed us with these three things: water, land, and sun. And for any agronomist, they know that with these three elements together, even if you work with just a finger, you can produce enough to feed yourself. So why is it that we, Niger, have been suffering all this time and still can't achieve food self-sufficiency? We had discussions with the Rural Engineering Department, with honor, with the Ministry of Agriculture, with the Director of the Solidarity Fund. There were several detailed project presentations to see exactly what we could do so that within 5 years, since we had already set a firm 5-year goal, we could finally become fully self-sufficient. But there is an investment that needs to be made. But that was everything except what we actually had. The investment was what we were lacking. But we weren't lacking in initiative, we weren't lacking in energy, and we certainly weren't lacking in resourcefulness either. We said, well, we're going to develop a large-scale irrigation program that will involve rehabilitating about 10,000 existing hectares. So we would rehabilitate those. We would develop about 20,000 new hectares. In total, after 5 years, the goal was to make about 40,000 hectares available to the people of Niger. If not, it's 39,600 and some change. So roughly 30,000 hectares. And that's what we started to do, rehabilitating what already existed. We successfully implemented it in the region of Gaïa. And we also achieved it in Zender. We carried it out in Difa, which is where we actually started the whole process. We also completed the work in Kazama. And once again in Zender. We did it in Marahi. And as I mentioned, we did it in Gaïa as well. Ultimately, in the Tilabéo region, we rehabilitated existing perimeter. In a period of time spanning less than 2 full years, our dedicated team successfully managed to fully rehabilitate and restore an area covering slightly more than 1,000 hectares of land. We have truly succeeded in our mission, as you yourself have likely observed quite recently, within the regions of the Air and the Irrigation, in accomplishing these vital tasks. That's what made it possible to achieve this feat. And I want to thank everyone who took part in the great irrigation adventure, whether it was the Ministry of Agriculture, ONAH, Rural Engineering, the producers, the cooperatives, or the Ministry of Finance, which from time to time, despite some resistance, still manages to contribute. And also the Solidarity Fund, which played a very important role in helping Nigerians feed themselves without having to beg. And since we've been here, you've never seen us ask for food aid. When food aid is offered to us, we say that we've moved past that. We've turned our backs on food aid. If you're ready to join us in other areas, we're ready. But if it's food aid, leave us be. We are intelligent enough. We are strong enough. We have enough land, water, and sunlight to produce for the benefit of our people. And that's what we will do, God willing, and we are already seeing the results. Mr. President, can we have some information about the state of the managed economy? And above all, what are the prospects in this regard? Well, whether the doomsayers and pessimists like it or not, the Nigerian economy is steadily moving forward. It is doing quite well, even in the face of a disrupted and unpredictable global environment. The country continues to make progress and demonstrate resilience. This is also what needs to be told to Nigerians, that difficulties, cash flow tensions, and so on are not unique to Nigerians. If only they could have a more analytical and thorough, research-oriented mindset. If you take a close look at the period from the year 2000 to 2026, the economic growth rate of the nation of Niger, well, they would likely be absolutely astonished by the results. Many of the countries that keep lecturing us had negative growth for nearly 10 years. That was not the case for Niger, and it still isn't the case for Niger. We had a growth rate of 10.3%, and in 2026, despite the decline, we are at about 7%. For those who like precision, 6.9%. So Niger is doing well when you consider the environment, because everything needs to be put into context. And we are in a global context that is not favorable to anyone. Currently, we are witnessing exceptionally strong economic growth, and we have successfully maintained an inflation rate that is strictly under control. Furthermore, we are proud to report that we have a substantial surplus in our external accounts, and we also continue to provide highly efficient and reliable public services to our citizens. In any case, it is important to recognize that all of these various aspects of national prosperity directly benefit the hardworking people of Niger in their daily lives. And how can we ensure that this benefits the people of Niger? That is now the question we need to consider further. Specifically, as I mentioned, in terms of growth, we are at 6.9%. In terms of inflation, we are at minus 4.4%. This is explained by the factor of large-scale irrigation that I just described. Prices are being controlled. You have a 25-kilogram sack for 8,000 francs. You have a 25-kilogram sack for 11,500. Because it depends on the quality of rice you want. RIS 33, which is the top quality, RIS 32, and the broken rice. There are two types of broken rice, 5% and 25%. So if you want the 5% or 25% broken rice, the sack is 8,000. You can get it. But either way, we are far from the 20,000 we had to pay during the embargo. So inflation is under control, because what causes inflation? It's the fluctuation in the prices of essential goods. So this inflation is kept below 4.4%. When you take the budget into account, we managed to execute the budget up to 1,886 billion. The budget we managed to execute reached 1,886 billion. It's an achievement. Through a series of strategic fiscal measures and careful planning, we successfully managed to significantly reduce the overall national budget deficit, effectively bringing it down from a high of 4.1% to a much more sustainable level of 3.2% of the total gross domestic product. We have successfully managed to keep our national debt levels remarkably low, currently sitting at just 43.2% of the total gross domestic product. This is a very positive position for us to be in, especially when you consider that the official international alert threshold for concern is set much higher at 70%. Today, I've seen countries that are over 100%. They've even broken through the ceiling. So we managed to stabilize, but the alert threshold is at 70%. In terms of exchanges with the world around us, since I said that we are still part of a global system and we are in a system, currently our national money supply is experiencing a significant expansion, growing at a rate of approximately 20% annually. Consequently, these developments are widely regarded as very positive signals for our future economic stability. Furthermore, the secondary sector of the economy has also demonstrated remarkable strength, having recently seen a substantial growth of 17.5% across all major industrial departments. When we take a look at the credit provided to the economy, we have seen a substantial growth rate of 6.1%. To support the vital sectors of construction, trade, and services. All of that is included, yes. It is a solid 6.1% growth. And the outlook for the year 2026 and also for 2027 is positive. So we are absolutely and firmly convinced that with the strategic direction we have carefully taken and with the rigorous discipline we have consistently imposed upon ourselves, despite the persistent and unfounded rumors that suggest life is easy and without struggle, and despite all of those challenges, we remain deeply convinced that much brighter and significantly better days are waiting for us just ahead on the horizon. I wouldn't say that everything is wonderful in the best of all possible worlds. We are facing challenges, tensions, liquidity issues, but as I said, this is not unique to Niger. In fact, it's not unique to him or to me. It's not unique to all African countries. It's a characteristic that can be observed even in other countries that like to lecture others. So we are aware that there are tensions, that there are deficits in terms of geopolitical tensions currently rising, and that there are severe currency shortages affecting the market. But these are merely different perspectives that are being considered by the team right now as we move forward. In any case, encouraging. It's a situation that is encouraging, and it's something he has mastered. We have to be convinced that if we collect 1 franc, and even if I haven't said it, we have increased the collection of taxes and duties. We went from 883 billion to 1,103 billion. That's an increase of 32.5%. That's not nothing. And the goal for this year would be to raise 1,800 and some billion. And it's possible. And we will do everything to make it possible, God willing. So there are prospects. It is absolutely essential for you to understand how to spend every single franc in exactly the right and most strategic direction, specifically in the investment that truly deserves to be prioritized and executed. And with that, we will clearly show that the specific path we have chosen is undoubtedly the most effective and superior path available to us. And that the people are convinced, more than any other personal struggle, if it is carried out with genuine and deep sincerity, leaves the fighter defeated. And we will not be defeated, God willing. Sir.
Thank you so much, families, for listening once again. If you are still here, please give this video thumbs up and share it if possible, so others will join us on this journey. Families, we are back to the security matters. Benin, our neighboring countries, what they are doing. Oh my goodness. I'll be back.
President, some believe that the difficult financial situation Niger is experiencing is partly due to our political choices, which are often at odds with the country's traditional partners. What is the reality of the situation? Is Niger actually facing a de facto embargo, Mr. President?
A de facto embargo, that's what I said. Each and every single day, and every time we express ourselves or make a formal statement, we must be sure to put absolutely everything into its correct and appropriate historical context. The partners you're referring to, what is their situation? I am asking the question to those who are asking the question. What is the situation of these partners? It is catastrophic. So Niger is in a system that is almost entirely made up of difficulties. When I say it's catastrophic, I mean it's not just difficulties. We are the ones facing difficulties, but they are in a catastrophic situation. But it seems like you're not following the news.
Current events.
The news coming from their side. It's not what we are broadcasting. Follow it and you'll understand. It's true. We are facing systematic obstructions. Since July 26th, 2023, and for this, you can approach the Prime Minister who took up the Pilgrim's staff from the Ministry of Economy and Finance. In each and every diplomatic meeting where Niger's vital interests needed to be defended, France consistently and systematically worked in direct opposition to our national interests. Furthermore, and perhaps even more concerningly, France actively campaigned alongside various other nations to ensure that they would collectively refuse to grant Niger even a single cent of support. The latest situation, to show you just how extraordinarily petty and vindictive France is, consider the water infrastructure in Zender. Go ahead and ask the Prime Minister yourself. France vetoed it. It was the only country in the entire world that voted against the proposal. The option of providing water to human beings, simply because they are Nigerians and because they come from a country that has decided to take its destiny into its own hands. Through leaders who have always been labeled as putschists. But coups, we see them happening elsewhere every day. When every decision, even the finance law, is passed. By invoking Article 49.3, one wonders who the real putschists are. Since Emmanuel Macron has been in office, he hasn't made a single decision without resorting to the forceps of 49.3. We issue executive orders, so that makes us colleagues. So we should no longer be accused of or labeled as putschists. If being a putschist is the case, then we are all putschists. If it's executive orders that define a putschist. But as for us, we are no longer putschists. It's all in the mind. And in our minds, we have freed ourselves. What we have done for our country. And we will not back down. When they call us putschists or pharaohs, that's their freedom of expression. But the reality is well known. When things are catastrophic in their country, here it's just difficult. But when we have food to eat, even if it means digging through the trash, I think we can say Alhamdulillah, and we say Alhamdulillah.
The least we can say is that our relations are not stable with certain African countries, such as Benin and Nigeria. Can you give us an update on the situation and tell us how you see the future of our relations with these two countries, first Benin and then Nigeria? Finally, perhaps to be thorough, our relations with Côte d'Ivoire as well.
What I would like to point out is that Niger has no problem with anyone. As long as you truly respect our decisions, you inherently respect our dignity. We do not have any issues with any person at all. But we will always have significant and persistent challenges with these lackeys who blindly follow every instruction given to them. Moreover, just because we currently belong or used to belong to a specific community, they feel they have the right to come and forcefully impose their strict dictates and expectations on us. Nigeria, I believe I spoke about this when I needed to draw the authorities' attention, to suggest that a nation like France, which greets you with such a wide and welcoming smile, will ultimately and inevitably lead you down a path toward total ruin. This is because I am fully aware of exactly what I discussed, no? I understand the deep reasons why I chose to present the specific information I did, and I am well acquainted with all the various elements I had at my disposal in order to effectively present the case that I have laid out before you today. But unfortunately, as we often say in a very famous and traditional Hausa proverb, a conflict where there is no collective will, there is a specific type of plant called the karam karam. Just the presence of this karam karam is more than enough for the experienced warriors to say that they simply can't maneuver through it. What I said was to sound the alarm so that the authorities in Nigeria would hear me. It's their choice. They decided not to listen to me. Do you remember back when I said that this is the new destiny and fate to which the nation of France, by utilizing the full power of its various armed forces, was exerting control over our sovereign states? Absolutely everyone came out in public to say, that is nothing more than a complete and blatant lie. But not even that. 2 months later, Macron spoke out. Because what I said, there are reports, there are written documents. It doesn't just come out of my head like that. The people kept moving forward. And as you have likely observed in recent developments, they have officially signed several mutual defense agreements. I warned them and explicitly stated that France is seeking to establish what they have referred to as a French version of AFRICOM, similar to the command structure that the Americans established. They put a General Pascal Yanni in charge, but it was a project to reposition the French defense forces. It's nothing more than that. They didn't believe it. They signed an agreement saying they're going to open a language school, Sons of LA. How is it even possible that France is planning to come all the way here and open up a brand new language school right in the heart of Abuja? It's French, isn't it? We have French speakers who speak better French than those instructors they're going to bring. I know what I'm talking about. I stayed over there with them. I saw the instructors they provided us with. So I know what I'm talking about. So if Nigerians want a French language school, but they're surrounded by French speakers, like, tell me an English-speaking country that surrounds Nigeria. There isn't one. They can't go to Cameroon, Chad, Niger, or Benin, or even further to look for instructors. No, the objective lies elsewhere. But we did our duty. We have drawn their attention to it. They didn't believe us. They made their choice, so we leave them with their choice. History will judge. But let them know that the French have not stopped their subversive maneuvers to reach Niger through Nigeria. From the 2nd of January until the 3rd of January in the year 2026, It was a specialized team of French agents who were present in the region of Zamfara. They successfully organized a strategic meeting in a forest called Rugu Rugu. It seems that the local government or something like that from Amusa, which is in Zamfara, they just have to check. It's their country. They're the ones who know. From January 2nd to 3rd, 2026, this French team organized a meeting with all the armed bandits and mercenaries who roam Sokoto, Zamfara, and Kebbi. More than 5 French people took part in this meeting. There's Maliki from Chirgay. Maliki from Chirgay is a Nigerian. I know him very well by reputation, not physically, because I follow his case. Maliki from Chirgay, he's from Gabi. He's the same one who had Majida Udegabi kidnapped in 2024. He had him mutilated. We were following it live. We told his family through the FDS officials not to pay the ransom because Maliki had given instructions. When the family pays the ransom, which amounted to 2 million plus a motorcycle and some phone credits, he will pay double that. To the bandits who kidnapped him, Majid Ali from Gabi, he said he would torture him to death with his own hands. That's what Maliki said. And unfortunately, the family didn't listen, they paid. And we can understand them. Because when you have a family member taken hostage and they show you images of torture, you have no choice. They broke his arms before bringing him to Maliki. When they brought him to Maliki, he paid them, as promised, double what the family had given. He broke his feet, his limbs, his femurs. He broke him and left him like that. He died in agony. So that's the man the French team met. The French team met another leader. I saw him. Thank God he's dead. We killed him. As for dividing up the money that this team had brought them, that was Abdourahmane Tiani. He was killed in January. There, if you were following, he took part in that meeting. Adonel Hero took part in that meeting. Sani Bled took part in that meeting. Black DJA took part in that meeting. The French told them to resume hostilities against Niger. Against Niger, I'm telling you, this happened from January 2nd to January 5th, 2026. There in Rugrugu, in Musa, local government, it's over there, it's in Zamfara. The Nigerians know, at least as for me, I say what I say and I don't say anything that hasn't been verified. The people involved are there, except for Abdourahmane Tiani, who was killed over the division of the money the French gave them. They ended up not getting along because the others were the representatives of Belturji. During the division, I think there was dishonest people can never make a fair division. They made an unfair division, and now the Belturji group launched an attack on Abdourahmane Tiani's position. That's to say in Nigeria. That's what I said about Benin. And that's the lesson I learned from Ali Farka Touré. May his soul rest in peace. Whenever you decide to put a leaf scorpion directly into your mouth, you absolutely need to know exactly where to keep your tongue safe. Similarly, when you choose to put a slithering snake inside your underwear, you must be very careful about every single move you make. Everyone can guess what happens next. That country, setting aside everything that I have just mentioned, simply because the underlying intention is to cause harm to Niger. But when you have a venomous scorpion inside your mouth, before you can even begin to harm Niger, you will certainly end up harming yourself first. Because when that scorpion stings your tongue, I truly do not know if you will be able to survive it. And that's what I'm telling Nigeria. Be careful, be very careful. We have evidence. I gave you one example. We have many other pieces of evidence, but we're keeping them to ourselves because that's our choice. And they've made their choice, so let them stick to their choice. We see the military authorities, unfortunately, saying that the most dangerous areas are in Niger. But a little common sense, Nigeria is Niger. Who has refugees in the other country? If Niger is the dangerous one, why are refugees from Nigeria fleeing to come to Niger? To come all the way to Niamey? DIFA is not enough for them. Maradi is not enough for them. Tawa is not enough for them. Zender is not enough for them. Dosso is not enough for them. They go all the way to Niamey. When they rotate their troops, I myself have been to Nigeria. I have carried out operations inside Nigeria. From Damazak to Malam Fatari, inside Nigeria, or from Baga to Malam Fatari, inside Nigeria. It's no more than 100 or 150 kilometers. However, whenever they are required to rotate their troops at Malam Fatari, starting from Burgmu, they must travel through Menosoroa, and then they proceed to head all the way down to Difa. Then they continue on to Kablewa. And from Kablewa, they turn towards Boso. And from Boso, they cross the Komadugu to go to Malam Fatari, inside Niger. But since Niger is the most dangerous territory, why do you travel more than 400 kilometers through the most dangerous territory when you could spare yourself all of that immense suffering and pain by just traveling a distance of just 100 kilometers? So if they are shouting to build a wall, I strongly invite them to come and see for themselves. There's no point in blaming Niger just to please the French. If you're going to blame Niger, you need to have evidence. That's what I did. When I speak, I'm able to say, here is the evidence. We're going to talk about military history. It's very important. Nigeria, Biafra, it was Niger that created Biafra. It was Niger that provoked Biafra from 1967 to 1970. Following the end of the Biafran War, the Maitatsine uprising emerged in 1979. We're talking about a staggering number, reaching hundreds of thousands of deaths in total that were recorded. Following the time when the Maitatsine movement was finally defeated during the years of 1984 and 1985, it was his devoted disciples, Abubakar Makani, along with Mohammed Abubakar, who stepped forward to take over the leadership roles. These individuals then continued the violent campaign of killing innocent Nigerians across the region for a long period of time. Abubakar Makani is a guy from Adamawa, inside Cameroon. He was captured, tried and sentenced to death. He was released in 2006 in Nigeria. He who had been sentenced to death. So, when he was forced to flee the country back in 1986, he went to seek political asylum and safety in Nigeria. But many years later, he eventually decided to return to his homeland and was apprehended by the authorities in 2005, where he was subsequently tried and sentenced to death. But he was not executed. They released him, I think, in 2006. I don't remember exactly. So there's Maitatsine, that's in Nigeria. Niger has nothing to do with this. After Maitatsine, you have Mosop, the movement for the survival of the Ogoni people. Kenule, Bison, Saro, and Uwa. Surely you have all heard his name mentioned before. He was hanged on the 10th November. Back in the year 1995, he was the one who, along with another professor named Layton, I believe his name is Frederick Layton, founded the entire organization. Together, they were responsible for creating the movement for the survival of the Ogoni people. He was born in Bori, in Nigeria. He is not from Niger. They led this movement in the 1990s until he was captured. And when was he hanged? On November 10th, 1995, in Port Harcourt. He is not from Niger, he is from Nigeria, like all the others. The Secretary General of the movement, Layton, whom I mentioned earlier. And from Nigeria, he is not from Niger. So Niger has nothing to do with the troubles that have plunged Nigeria into mourning after the Mozo. So Kensarowiwa, where even the international community got involved. We witnessed the Mend, where up to now, Nnamdi Kanu, he is Nigerian. It's true, I said, the Igbos passed through Niger, but that was more than 3,000 years ago. They passed through Niger, but they are not Nigerians. If it's just the fact that they passed through Niger that makes people say Niger is dangerous, then I accept that because I acknowledged it. But otherwise, they are not Nigerians. In any case, they are not from Niger. They are all from Nigeria. Following his leadership, the Mende ethnic group emerged, and under the direction of Namdi Kanu, we also see the rise of the insurgent group known as Boko Haram, which was led by the founder Yusuf Mohammed. But even before Boko Haram, there were other movements. I don't like to talk about them. You know them Muslim movements where there were deaths, killings. I'm not talking about those movements. Let's turn to Yusuf Mohammed, whose father was killed precisely during the Maitatini revolt or the Maitatini Holy War. That's where his father was killed. Mohammed Yusuf, yes. So let's get to Mohammed Yusuf. Mohammed Yusuf is not from Niger, he is from Borno, he is not from Niger. If he is from a city in Niger, that, tell me or let the Nigerian enlighten us. Mohammed Yusuf first began the process of establishing his movement quite early on, specifically during the period spanning from the year 2000 through to 2002. Over the following years, the situation grew increasingly volatile and deteriorated significantly until he eventually made the decision to take up arms in 2009. This escalation in violence directly resulted in his eventual capture and subsequent elimination by the authorities. If I recall correctly, I believe the specific date of these significant events was on July 29th in the year 2009. In Maiduguri, as always. Mahmoud Yusuf, after his elimination, still gave rise to Boko Haram, but which continued under Abu Bakr Shekau. Abu Bakr Shekau is not from Niger. When they experienced a major split for ideological reasons to create the group known as Boko Haram under the leadership of Abu Bakr Shekau, continuing all the way up until his eventual death and elimination in May 2000, or else the faction led by the son of Mohammed Yusuf, Abu Musa al-Barnawi, whose real name is Habib Mohammed Yusuf. But none of them are Nigerian. After the death of Abu Bakr Shekau, it was Mohammed Ibrahim or Abu Umaima who took over. Abu Bakr Shekau is not Nigerian. Mohammed Ibrahim or Abu Umaima is not Nigerian. Habib Mohammed Yusuf is not Nigerian, or his father, Yusuf Mohammed as well. Mohammed Yusuf is not Nigerian either. But Tetsini is not Nigerian, he is from Borno. I don't know where they come up with these accusations, which reflect a certain ignorance of the basic knowledge of their own history. And especially when it comes from the mouths of military men who should have an understanding of military history. Because everything I've said is military history, since it relates to conflicts involving a country in which Niger is not involved. There, in Kurawa, there are no Nigerians at all. In any case, among the leaders, there are bandits like Maliki, as I mentioned, whom people use for the highest bidder, but the main leaders are from ISWAP. ISWAP, as I said, is Habibu Mohammed Yusuf. These are the individuals who have joined forces with members of EGS and the armed bandits who operated in the Sokoto, Katina, Zamfara, and Kebbi areas to form the Akura movement. We have monitored the formation of this group and we have brought it to their attention. They are not Nigerians, so they need to understand that. We have no interest in this. We clearly saw how the entire north of Nigeria supported us during the time when ECOWAS wanted to wage a proxy war against our nation. Furthermore, we saw how the dedicated marabouts in Nigeria prayed for us in the mosques on every single occasion to show their support for us. So, as we already know quite well, these are two peoples, even if there are attempts to divide them, but they are peoples who share a common history. Whether it's the north, the south, the east, or the west of Nigeria, as I said, they all passed through Niger. You can't spend 100 years, 200 years, or even 1,000 years on a territory and claim that you haven't kept somewhere a certain affection for that territory. We have nothing against Nigeria, but when we see something that because of their carelessness could harm us, we will not stay silent. And that's the difference. And that's why people say we're isolationists, that we're troublemakers. We are not isolationists, we are not hypocrites. That's the difference. We are not diplomats. We don't know diplomatic language. A dog is called a dog. A cat is called a cat. A horse is a horse unless proven otherwise, at least until we change its name. And that's what we do. As for Nigeria, as for Benin, you mentioned Benin. Yes, Benin? Benin, it's the same situation. We have explained our concerns. But what do people say to us? It's because we're jealous. Son of a layman. How could we be jealous of an African country that is succeeding? If indeed this African country is truly succeeding and flourishing, how could we possibly be jealous of an African nation that is prosperous, even if it is located far away, let alone one right next door? Like Benin, we are certainly not envious of their success, because we know that it's a sin. We are not jealous because there is nothing to be jealous of between Benin and us, and especially between Patrice Talon and us. We spoke certain truths at the time. And Patrice Talon mocked them, saying it was just the jealous and the envious who were talking. Because there are watchtowers that are well built, there is a well-designed defense system, and that's why we are jealous. Today, where is that defense system? Throughout northern Benin, there isn't a single Beninese soldier. He left it in the hands of terrorists and French and Ukrainian mercenaries. That's the reality of the situation. I'm going to tell you about some of the factors that led to this situation. The first one, known to everyone, is this embargo where Patrice Talon rushed and hurried to close things down. Pharmaceutical products that had completed all the formalities, he had them blocked. Essential and perishable food supplies, he had them blocked right there on the bridge. Furthermore, and more significantly, he was an active player in waging a war against the nation of Niger and attempting to restore their unseated ally to power. We have been following every single detail of that entire situation. But we know that's not the best option between two neighboring countries. You saw that in 2024, he sent his Minister of Water and Energy to meet with Niger's Minister of Petroleum at the time. They came and they held their meeting at Mahatma Gandhi. He himself said on television that the meeting went very well. Suddenly, he was supposed to meet with the Prime Minister, but it turned out that Prime Minister Lamine Zine was away on a trip. The person who was supposed to act as his interim, General Salif Modi, was also away. So, in order of succession, it was the Minister of Health who was acting as interim Prime Minister. He received him. During the meeting with the Minister of Health, he said that he wanted to see the President because he had a message. I have a message to deliver to the President from his brother. The Minister of Health contacted me. I told him that there is diplomacy. It has defined the framework for how things operate. It has comprehensively established the protocol framework. It has effectively defined every single necessary component within the system. If he is an envoy from President Talon, there is a procedure. They must write to say that he is carrying a message. Depending on my schedule, I communicate a date to him through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, when I will be ready to receive him. I told the minister, and I am currently busy because we had an operational emergency. I cannot receive him. And even if there were no operational emergency, just because people think you can get an audience by hitchhiking, we have to show them it's true, we are military, but there's no such thing as an audience by hitchhiking. There are procedures, there are rules, and they must be respected. He left, and before he even arrived at the airport, he organized a press conference to say that he came with an outstretched hand to the putschist president of Niger, and that the putschist president of Niger put a saber to cut off the fraternal hand or arm of Patrice Talon. So that's one point. What else happened during this period? For reasons that remain completely unknown to me, the authorities in Benin decided to block 50 Nigerian vehicles that had only just arrived at the port at the exact same time
we had freshly arrived ourselves. These were not just any ordinary vehicles. They were 50 specialized units specifically intended for the essential use of our national defense and security forces. As for 10 armored vehicles that were also at the port, Benin, together with the French, made those armored vehicles disappear. In 2023, you remember, the Mistral docked on December 7th, 2023, and then left with those armored vehicles. They think we don't know, but we do know. Our 50 trucks, they blocked them for 2 years. For no reason, all the paperwork was done. We said, let our equipment enter through Togo, we'll retrieve them. They refused. We absolutely have to open the border. We said, keep them, we are able to fight without those vehicles. It was in December 2025 that they released the vehicles. 50, even better. Benin, with whom we were nevertheless in constant communication through the ministries, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Niger and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Benin, and both ministries, the Ministry of Petroleum of Niger and the Ministry of Water and Energy of Benin, had decided, completely against all logical explanation and entirely against all rational understanding, they actually made the decision to detain, if you can recall the details, the entire specialized team that we had previously sent over to closely monitor the complex loading process of the second cargo ship. It turns out that they have indeed gone ahead and detained every single one of them. They said they were terrorists who had entered Benin, even though there had been exchanges with the ISF, where they had given their approval for this team to come to Benin. They detained them. They sent them to standard high-security prisons alongside major criminals, including the former deputy general manager of WAPCO, who is a woman. They incarcerated her with other women who were heavily involved in organized crime, large-scale drug trafficking, and the most serious, the very gravest of crimes. This woman was ultimately convicted by the judicial system in Benin. Another provocation. They held a trial, they were released, sentenced with a suspended sentence. In yet another unexpected provocation, the nation of Benin, through some mysterious and unknown maneuver, suddenly discovers that several Nigerian diplomats are suddenly criminals. And Benin decides to expel them. Again, Benin decides to expel another compatriot, I believe, who works in the SECNA sector. Just like that, huh? 72 hours to leave. No one says a word, right? 72 hours to leave. It's the same thing they did with our 2 diplomats, simply because they work in the security field. So when faced with actions like these, do we, who have and still hold evidence, I said it here. Benin, the Beninese Ministry of the Interior, ordered through an economic operator who isn't even Beninese, 100 drones. Those 100 drones, when they arrived, were distributed to the terrorists. The Beninese army or the defense and security forces of Benin did not use them. I had already said it. We have evidence. Benin, the French people weep. They were forcibly removed and expelled from the borders of our sovereign territory by way of the neighboring country of Chad, and eventually found themselves arriving in Benin within the span of that very same week. Do you really think it's for Niger's benefit that they're doing everything they can to end up in Benin? Benin, where, as I said before, there were special forces. They came out and said it was out of jealousy. But Macron didn't come out to confirm it. What was said? Did they come back to apologize? Benin, where the ambassador, you remember, in February 2025 was in Gaia. He told the people of Gaia and the people of Moalamville to cooperate. We are brothers. We need to learn to forgive. That word forgive that he used, Patrice Talon made it resonate. In other words, he told him that there is forgiveness between Niger and Benin. and especially between the authorities of Niger and himself. They reminded him, if you remember that it happened in February 2025. Benin is currently hosting destabilization bases. I say it and I repeat it. They will say it's not true. They're used to saying it's not true. But what we're saying is we're not jealous of anyone. There's no need to keep giving the same version. Always they're jealous, they're jealous. No, counter arguments with arguments. They said they have instructors in Benin. There is no force. Even Macron, who came out and said there are special forces there, he lied. Even if they didn't come out to say he lied, it's because they don't have the courage to do so. But I remind you, Benin, they have formally accused us of being the primary instigators behind the scenes. This concerns their so-called masquerade that took place on December 7th, 2025. It was an attempted coup d'etat, apparently, which was carried out in direct collaboration with Colonel Pascal Tigri. What is the piece of evidence? They say that 2 days before, we had removed containers, meaning trucks, trains, trucks, mind you, that served as barricades between us and them. That's what we kept, of course, with forces to secure the obstacle up to now. The individual who owns those trucks has officially filed a formal legal lawsuit regarding the situation against the Ministry of Defense. He won the case. It's true, we're accused of being putschists, but we do not disregard the rights of our citizens. And with a penalty of 1 million CFA francs every day if we don't release those assets. So that Benin doesn't think we're involved in a future coup d'etat that might happen. We have made the firm decision that we will continue to pay out the penalties of 1 million CFA francs per day. Nah? Consequently, we withdrew our presence and focused on doing exactly what we know how to do best. We replaced those vehicles with what we call ESCOs, which we have now fully loaded and prepared for deployment, with materials that we used to rebuild this defensive wall to protect our troops. 2 days later, Tigri did what he did, and they spread the word, even to this day, that whenever there is a hearing, it's Niger that tried to overthrow Patrice Talon, simply to gain the sympathy of the West. But when you lie like that, those you lie to, maybe out of politeness, listen to you, but know that Allah exists. And even if they don't believe in Allah, they believe in Vodou. The God of Vodou, He exists. As for us, we know that we didn't even know, what's his name? Pascal Tigri, not even by name, before December 7th. We didn't even know his name. God is our witness. And I want Patrice Talon to come out and say that God is his witness, that we knew him, Pascal Tigri. So it has nothing to do with it. But it's a narrative that keeps being spread. We saw his plane. Look, the event took place at Cotonou, and apparently Pascal Tigri, he was even part of the Presidential Guard, I think, or the Republican Guard. In any case, he was part of the Special Forces. How could a highly elite member of the Special Forces, a man who was rigorously trained to survive and fight in every imaginable kind of hostile environment, who underwent years of intense physical and mental training to master every possible trick or tactical technique to escape capture and exfiltrate himself from danger? How could such a professional soldier decide to travel over 800 or so grueling kilometers across difficult terrain from the city of Cotonou just to look for the remote Niger border? No matter which direction, all the border towns or villages, it's hundreds of kilometers away. While there's a porous border, like a fishing net in the sea, just 25 kilometers away at most with Nigeria. He goes 25 kilometers and he's inside Nigeria. No one, since it's a border that's not controlled. And Tigri knows it even better than I do. But I've taken that route myself. It's not even 25 kilometers. They could have exfiltrated through there. They could have exfiltrated toward the border with Togo, which is less than 5 kilometers away. I've taken that route as well, back in 2006. So they don't do all that. They choose to exfiltrate through Niger, since it's Niger that needs to be blamed. Even better. They say that once, well, maybe since ridicule doesn't kill, they don't even realize how ridiculous what they're saying is, since they keep repeating it. They said they followed this trip. I don't know how he managed to get all the way to Togo. And that from Togo, a Burkinabe businessman sent a plane to take him to Niamey. And in Niamey, he's supposedly in the ministerial district right next to the prime minister. You know where the prime minister stays. Does the prime minister actually stay in the ministerial district? So that's just to show you how absurd this is. And it's these absurdities that they're repeating to every visitor. They're even organizing guided tours. But Patrice Talon should know that we have taken our destiny into our own hands. For him to say that our territory is a highway for terrorists, we have 1,267,000 square kilometers. Benin, the smallest region, is Dosso. 114,000 square kilometers. It's Dosso. We managed to secure it. Despite everything, despite the challenges, despite the collusion, our territory of 1,267,000 square kilometers. How could we possibly be jealous of Benin's inability to control 114,000 square kilometers? The entire north is in the hands of terrorists. How low would we have to be to envy such a system? There's no point in constantly feeding lies to the citizens. No matter how fast a lie runs, the truth will eventually catch up to it. We have nothing against Benin. As I said, I know the history. Even the noble Prince Kondo himself, whom he boldly and repeatedly claims as his very own kin. Kondo is closer to us than to Patrice Talon. He just needs to go and find out for himself. It's Behanzin, Prince Kondo. He was the last one who died in Algeria. Because of whom the same France deported along with his family. I'm saying this one last time to Patrice Talon. We know the extent of his involvement, his complicity in trying to destabilize us. But in doing so, he will only harm his own people. The French say they have instructors. Let me tell you about the transport equipment the French have in Benin. They have 13 planes. Strategic transport, tactical transport, reconnaissance, electronic warfare, command post aircraft. For just about 20 highly skilled flight instructors, there are only 13 operational aircraft available. And let me say this even more clearly to Patrice Talon. This is exactly what I know and what I truly want to tell him right now. Out of all these 13 different planes parked here, 5 of them are manufactured by Beechcraft. Specifically, there are 2 distinct Beechcraft King Air 350 models available. Currently, there is one Beechcraft King Air 300 model visible on the field. Furthermore, we can see one Beechcraft 350, which is a King Air Beechcraft. Lastly, there is one Beechcraft 1900 Delta aircraft stationed here. In addition to these 5 specialized Beechcraft aircraft, which are primarily utilized for critical missions including aerial surveillance, electronic warfare, signal intelligence gathering, and medium-range transport. Furthermore, there are platforms configured to carry about 40 passengers, which serve as a mobile airborne command post for strategic operations. They also possess 3 Airbus A330 aircraft, 3 Airbus A330 aircraft, which are long-range strategic transport aircraft, including one specific Airbus A330 model. Mike Romeo, Tango, Tango, Phoenix. This aircraft not only performs strategic transport, but it can also medical evacuation. In addition to these 3 A330s, including the one I mentioned, Mike Tango, Tango Phoenix, they have 2 C-130s, including one C-130. Juliet. This C-130 Juliet is used for airdrops and tactical transport. They perform assault landings, The second C-130 is used for tactical transport and also performs assault landings. They have types of reconnaissance aircraft which are called light reconnaissance aircraft. ALSR. They have two of them. ALSR Bravo Echo 300. Then they have an aircraft called the CN or CASA. Our allied countries have CASAs. Mali has a CASA. Burkina Faso has a CASA. These are aircraft used for transport, but they also carry out troop transport missions. So how can I be convinced that 13 planes, which I just described, which are full of holes, they are not permanently parked? They do transport flights to Toulouse, an airport located at coordinates 10 degrees 18 minutes 7 seconds north. Located at exactly 1 degree of longitude, 56 minutes, 36 seconds in the direction of east. That's the Toulouse airport. These planes have permanent authorization for flight, overflight, and landing. And what's more, these are planes that never land before 1 a.m. All the flights take place at night, between 1 and 3 a.m. Don't tell me it's to help Benin with training. No, we're not naive. We know what we know. Patrice Talon knows that what we're saying is the absolute truth. Let me remind Patrice Talon, on January 27, 2026, he received an individual who had just returned from France barely a week earlier. He clearly explained to the Beninese people the exact purpose of this diplomatic emissary, sent from President Emmanuel Macron. He's not French, he's not Beninese, but I know who he is, and so does Patrice Talon. It was Tuesday, January 27th, there, 2026. The guy had barely been back from France for a week when he received him. He just needs to tell the Beninese people what they talked about. He can also say again that it's because I'm jealous of the audiences he grants. Patrice Talon, we've come to know him. Patrice Talon gave his report, you followed it. While he is 6 months away from the end of his term, but he didn't announce one thing to the Beninese people. I am issuing a direct challenge to him right now. I'm now openly challenging him to step forward and reveal the specific numbers and the detailed financial figures that I am about to present to the public right now. An automat Kalashnikova assault rifle and a reliable semi-automatic pistol. Okay, and then, well, look at his health points. He's down to only 2 HP remaining. The ratio, 76, 15, 9, perimeter, 551 square kilometers. Date of first implementation. I specifically mentioned the word implementation to allow him the opportunity to choose and truly understand exactly what I am talking about in this context. By the time we reached the year 1982, we saw the final end of this specific implementation phase. Then, moving forward to the year 1998, the figures reached a total of 22 million in all. He just has to tell the Beninese. Since he says that every time we are jealous, it's out of envy that we denounce these wrongdoings. He just has to explain to the Beninese the figures I have just shared. As for Côte d'Ivoire, I won't dwell on it. In Côte d'Ivoire, during the specific period of time when I was personally staying in Côte d'Ivoire, a very large number of Ivorian citizens had already fled the country. I was in Côte d'Ivoire. I served with the ECOWAS mission, specifically the Misesi operation. Furthermore, I was stationed in Côte d'Ivoire with the United Nations mission. On the date of April 4th in the year 2004. I hold the distinction of being the very first Nigerian battalion commander who successfully led the Nigerian troops during this critical period. When I was there, as part of the ECOWAS mission, the command post was in Zimbabwe. That is located right next to Yamoussoukro. situated just a short distance of a few kilometers away from Yamoussoukro. When I transitioned over to my new role at the United Nations, I specifically had my entire battalion deployed right in the center of the region. During that time, I maintained my primary command post in the town of Prikro to oversee all of our ongoing operations. I had my troops stationed in Famiokro, and I also had troops positioned in Adiapikro, which is located near Bongera, and they certainly know exactly what Bongera is. At the very beginning, my primary command post was established in Prikro, but then later on I moved it to Daukro. It was my troops, along with a section from Ghana, who intervened. When there was the massacre following an ambush in Korogo, in the Korogo region, I remember it must have been in June or July 2004. I personally carried out numerous difficult missions throughout the Ivorian territory to maintain peace in Côte d'Ivoire, because we were all deeply committed to a very noble ideal. I have crossed many remote rivers that I am absolutely certain 80% of Ivorians themselves have never even crossed. These include the Enzi, the Komoy, and the Great Bandama River. We were spending time at the beautiful Lake Kosu, which is located not very far from the city of Yamoussoukro as well. I traveled. They are originally from Daukro. I went as far as Man. From Man, I went all the way to Djenne. I eventually came back through the town of Man to head up towards Danani. I crossed the border with a specific country that I won't name here, but they certainly know which one it was from that year. Right as you leave the area, there is a bridge. I crossed over it as a formal part of the mission. On the way back, I took the coastal road all through Pleu. In order to make my way back to the city of Daloa, because I had already passed through Daloa earlier, from Daloa I traveled onward to Vavois, and then I continued to Seguela. After that, I eventually came back. I went back to Daloa once more, and then right here to Mama, to visit President Gbagbo's family home. To head out again towards Tumodi, not even to Ayamoussoukro, since it was on the way there that I passed through Ayamoussoukro. I went from Aukro all the way to the Banduku border at the border with Ghana. I personally made the long and arduous journey all the way from Aukro to the city of Abidjan, a place where some of those very people who are shouting so loudly today were completely unable to even set foot or show their faces during the entire time that we were stationed there. During the specific period of time when French military forces were involved in the widespread looting of Côte d'Ivoire, the French soldiers systematically targeted and plundered the various branches of the central bank. This occurred in the city of Korhogo, in the major hub of Bouaké, and across all the other significant urban centers throughout the country where large financial deposits and monetary reserves were known to be stored. They transported millions, tens of millions, even hundreds of millions of CFA francs. The only saving grace was that they couldn't go to France with the CFA francs since no one would exchange them for them. They were forced to spend that money locally in Côte d'Ivoire. It wasn't the Nigerians who looted, it was the French. Today, they're friends with whom they now cozy up. And I was the one who made that sacrifice because there was an ideal we believed in. The Nigerians secured Ouattara at the Hotel du Golfe. All the other forces refused. Niger had a special detachment stationed in Rivera, which protected all the authorities. We did this impartially. If it wasn't me, it was those who replaced me. Since it was a deployment, we stayed for 8 months. Unlike the usual practice where deployments lasted 6 months, it was the Nigerians who provided his security. And as for me, that's what I did. But I know what he is currently doing to harm Niger. I'm going to remind him of some dates. From August the 6th to the 7th and the 8th in the year 2024 at the Gulf Hotel. From August the 6th through the 7th and until the 8th in the year 2024, held at the Gulf Hotel. from the 8th to a town called Jacquesville, I believe, which is not far from Abidjan, starting from the date of October 28th and continuing all the way through until November 27th in the current year. At the 43rd Bima, I'm giving dates. He should check what happened during these periods I'm mentioning. I included JIE in the year 2025, which is located in Korogo, the 4th administrative region of the area. But I decided to include everything, right up to today. Right here at the main camp, which was once the former base of the 3rd Battalion of Boki. He should check what happened and what is happening. Then in the town of Sokora, during that same time frame, which is a town located not far from Boki, he should check on what is happening there. I know what's happening. In Kong, at the border with Burkina, he should check what is happening. I know what's happening, and he knows what's happening. In the month of December, right at the very end of December 2025, there were multiple meetings that took place back then, and I have the specific dates for them. I have all the dates right here with me. He himself participated. We should let him answer truthfully and in good conscience for every single one of those specific dates. And what exactly was the underlying purpose behind each and every one of those numerous meetings? On the 16th, the 17th, the 18th, and the 19th of July, taking place at the Hôtel des Armées, which is located right in the heart of the Plateau district, in Abidjan, starting with a very special and significant meeting between 3 different countries, including the nation of France, the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire, and the country of Benin. On July 18th, apart from the others that took place on the 16th, 17th, or 19th, the one on July 18th, which brought together officials. I know who it is. He knows who it is. Let him come out and explain in detail to the Ivorians exactly what happened. We have something much better than that, and we certainly have more than that. We have the ultimate source of funding, but we are preserving it for the sake of historical record. There's no point in people thinking that it's the evidence that will make things move forward. These people to give up what they're doing. Who hasn't seen Mali? Since the time of Choguel Maïga, who was abandoned mid-flight at the United Nations, who had gone there with evidence to Abdoulaye Maïga, the general, currently Prime Minister, who repeated several times, 3 times, asking to be allowed to present the evidence. Tell me, who has always opposed? Wasn't it France who used its veto right? It was France who used its veto right. But we know, and Nigerians need to understand, in addition to what we are saying with precision, date, time, place, geographic coordinates, actors, amount. As for the amount, I return to Patrice Talon. December 2024, he gave 90 million to Takubo Koé. 90 million, December 2024. I know why he gave the 90 million, but he should just ask Takubo Koé if the way he used the 90 million is what Patrice Talon had asked him to do. Takubo Koé handed over this sum during a meeting in Abuja from December 8th to 9th, 2024, for the purchase of 700 motorcycles, including 500 motorcycles for Guinim and 200 motorcycles for IGS. This took place from December 8th to 9th, the year 2024, and in the private workspace of an assistant that I am acquainted with and whom he knows as well. A meeting during which participants took part whom I know and whom he knows. But the purpose for which I am refreshing Patrice Talon's memory, for which he had given the 90 million, was actually part of a larger sum of 300 million. It was intended to be paid to the terrorists who are currently carrying out operations in the W and Penjari. Taku Bokoy diverted that money because he used it as a contribution for the purchase of the 700 motorcycles. If you noticed, on December 31st, 2024, the contract that bound Patrice Talon to the terrorist ended. Thank you. That was the reason they were paying this money, and it came to an end. On the 8th of January, while even the Beninese chief of staff was away, traveling on an official mission in the country of Chad, there was an unexpectedly violent attack that took place.
Thank you so much, families, for listening up to this stage. There is more to this video, as you are aware of it. I thought it's 5 hours. When I finish this, I say yes. Then I look at the time and it's more. So yes, I will be back with part 3. There is more. There is more, as you can tell. And I'm so happy to have this opportunity to be learning what I'm learning. I know it's time consuming plus money, but I'm grateful. And I hope somebody who can write a book in English will be writing this down, because I cannot write it. This is your opportunity to listen to what I've worked on and write a book for our English speaking children, so they will also have this rich history of our Africa countries that they call poor, but once upon the time we were rich. We know it, but when it's not written down, one day it will be washed away again. Because you remember, many a times when these people are destroying countries, they go deep down to where these books are. Right now we have technology that we can store them, but most of these technologies is in their hands anyway. So be putting things down. So hopefully our future children will also learn from what we are doing today. I cannot be 100% sure of this YouTube, but if you can write a book, why not? Contact me. I have a lot back. I will send them to you to write a book, because it's history that is written itself right now in our time. It is history. The book has 10. Everything has 10. Gone were the days when Niger, Africa, used to feed Europe. And they call themselves superior. So they have to come and take, and even sellers and even buyers, and take everything and degrade us to nothing. Africa is rising up again. Yes, Africa is rising again. And this time, hopefully, no one is going to stop this. No one will stop it. If our own people will realize where we are going now, the path that Africa, some part of Africa, let's say the AES has taken, if they will realize, change their mindset, and come back home, Africa will not be the same again within 2-3 years. It will not go that far to 20 years, 10 years. No, things will change. We have everything that it takes to make Africa work again. Human resources, natural resources, technology, believe it or not, technology starts from Africa. It started from Africa. They keep taking. I don't blame anyone, but listening to what I've listening and work on, I blame our leaders. I blame some of our leaders. Because if you have something and I don't have, and I needed that thing, I'm referring to one of our aunties that passed away, Mrs. Ama, I can't remember the surname, from Ghana, economic minister, years ago. She has passed. She said she doesn't blame them. I understand now why she didn't blame them. Because they need it, we have it, and we can't take care of it. So they will come and take it. And take it for free, and we are not even fighting over it. We even let them take it more, and then we follow them and go and beg for money from them or anything, beg for food. It doesn't make any sense anyway. Families, I will leave you here. We have wasted a lot of time already. I hope it's not wasted. Credit to RTN for sharing this with us, and credit to our President General Abdourahmane Tiani and all the team, the cameraman, the editing men and women, the interviewer. Thank you for your time. I know how much it takes to create something like this. Thank you. May God give you all long life. Our leaders, General Abdourahmane Tiani, General Asimigiota, Captain Brian Chouari, and your team. Keep doing what you are doing. Keep doing what you are doing because you are on the right path, and we support you 100%. Thank you, my members. Thank you. My new members, thank you so much. Those who are passing by, thank you. If this is your first time here, my name is Mamri. I'm just doing documentary here. What is going on in Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, translating them, working on them. So those of us who do not speak or understand French will know what is going on because we love and support them. We support what they are doing, and that's why I'm here. So please, like the video, subscribe, and also share if possible. Let others know what is going on. I'm not clever enough to narrate any story. I'm just documenting what is going on for us and in future children. Hopefully, this channel will be there for others to come and listen to. That's all. So leave your comment so other people will also read from you. God bless you all. Those of you who have been super chatting me, I truly appreciate you all. God bless you, and may God fill your pocket more and more. I will see you soon. Bye-bye for now.